Artur was asking me, do you have good Chinese friends? China is destroying our identity.
Things change.
Tibet is an unresolved conflict.
No access to diplomats, no access to journalists.
Where is the reason for China to come and talk to us?
Тибет довольно уже давно захвачен и оккупирован Китайской Народной Республикой. Многим тибетцам, большинству, я так понимаю, что большинству тибетцев пришлось тогда еще родину покинуть. Многие из них родились уже в Индии, никогда не видели дома. То есть это, в общем, уникальный случай, когда существует полноценная нация, страна, даже страна в изгнании. И вот об этом мы сегодня будем говорить, потому что для меня лично это тоже тема сегодня, к сожалению, актуальна. Я тоже изгнанник, мне тоже пришлось покинуть родину. И тоже, в общем-то, по причине довольно очевидной, по причине того, что, в общем, мою родину тоже так или иначе захватили, можно так сказать, выражаясь грубо, захватили, в общем-то, какие-то темные силы. Вот. Только разница в том, что в Тибет люди пришли извне, а в случае с моей страной эта беда случилась изнутри. Я поймал себя на том, что я, конечно, должен спросить у вас, как у человека, который, насколько я понимаю, родился в Индии, то есть не дома. Что для вас дом сегодня? Что это такое, когда вы сами произносите слово «дом», что вы представляете? То есть, когда вы слышите «вернуться домой», что это для вас такое?
Of course, I was...
How do you impress, this word, home? So when you say, I go back home, what does it mean for you? I mean more your feelings, and impressions.
Since childhood, my parents used to talk about Tibet. And as a child, we used to sit with them and listen to stories about Tibet. And not having seen Tibet, these days, to fulfill my emotional needs, I go on the Himalayas to Ladakh, Arunachal Pradesh, and see Tibet from the Indian border. So, of course, right now, my home is in India, but then in our mind, we always think about Tibet as our home and one day look forward to go back home.
Have you been in Lhasa? Have you been there?
Never.
Но, может быть, вы знаете, может быть, вы можете нам что-то рассказать, что сейчас представляет собой этот город, который мы вообще знаем только по открыткам, да, или из фильмов. Что там сейчас происходит, как он выглядит?
So Lhasa is only the capital city. Today in Lhasa and in all areas of Tibet, people live under constant fear. It's more like the SS of East Germany those days. China has strengthened this anti-espionage law where ordinary people report about other people and they reward people with information on other people. Just like the SS, they husband watch over the wife watch over the kids watch over the family. So you don't know whom to trust, what to speak. Because if you say something wrong, tomorrow you might go to jail. So it's more like George Orwell's 1984 coming into reality in China today, and more particularly in Tibet. These days, when we go around, people ask us why we don't hear about Tibet much more than before. This is one constant question I have to face. Because there's no political space whatsoever to do anything. So they have introduced this gridlock system. Now, since the opening up, since zero COVID, China is trying to open up. Last year, from 1st May, they opened up the Tibet-Nepal border. And they bring bus loads of Tibetans from Tibet to Nepal and Kathmandu and Pokhara, and then they also take them to Bhutan. But when they come with supervisors in every bus So you can't go out and meet other Tibetans in Nepal. You can't stay in Tibetan restaurants in Nepal or Tibetan hotels in Nepal. So you're all guided. Chinese call Tibet the socialist paradise. So if Tibet is a socialist paradise, why don't you allow people to see the paradise for themselves?
Это очень похоже на то, что сейчас происходит в моей стране, и все ухудшается и ухудшается, и разница только в размерах. Но суть происходящего похожа, к сожалению, поэтому я лично очень хорошо понимаю, что переживают эти люди. Yeah. I have many questions because of this answer, but let's give the chance for this girl.
Thank you. It is such an honor to be asking a question here tonight. I assume I am the youngest audience here, so I will ask a simpler question. But is the Tibetan government in any way working towards persevering that religion and culture of the Tibetan people among the younger generations? Because you mentioned that there are schools across some nations. So is the government working to preserve that culture in any way for younger generations living abroad, as in not directly in Tibetan? И я сразу переведу. Работает ли тибетское правительство каким-нибудь образом над сохранением тибетской культуры и религии среди молодого поколения тибетцев, живущих за пределом Тибета? Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is the most important work that we have to carry on because China is destroying our identity in terms of language, our religion, our culture, our way of life, including environment. So maybe simply you can say cultural genocide. So that is why we made, because of the leadership of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in India we have been able to re-establish many of the monasteries that were destroyed inside Tibet. So today in India, in some big monasteries, we have 6,000, 7,000 monks in one monastery. We have 7 ministries in our exile cabinet, 7 ministries, including religion and culture. And there are 292 monasteries and nunneries registered under this ministry in India, Nepal, and Bhutan. So your question is more about the younger generations abroad. So wherever we have Tibetan associations like London, we have Tibetan community, and they, of course, all the children have to go to their regular schools and they have a lot of homework and other things. But on weekends, we have separate Tibetan classes. Now, there are many Buddhist centers all around the world. So many Buddhist centers. They also play a very important role. So we are trying to reach out as much as possible within our limited resources, but it's becoming an increasing challenge for us. So more and more younger generation of Tibetans in United States, Europe, Australia, now they come in groups to Dharamsala during their holidays. So we have summer camps for young Tibetans to come to Dharamsala, see Dharamsala for themselves, learn Tibetan language, Tibetan culture, dance, dramas. So those kind of things are very much prevalent, and we have more plan to increase that.
And I have a question, so how many people usually are coming to these camps, or how many young Tibetans?
There are different programs, some in schools, some in institutions, some we take them to Tibetan settlements. So I don't have the exact number, but every year it could be a few hundred. But then we also organize, wherever I go, I meet separately with the Tibetan youth. I speak to them separately, that they know that we are interested in them.
And I'm sorry, and are they interested in you?
Definitely. Now they listen very carefully.
It's not a joke. It's
yes,
very, because they're young and they are living different cultures, and they have their own impressions about their future, as I understand about young persons. Very often they don't really interesting about their roots, about their past, you understand what I mean. So,
but a lot depends on parents
yeah,
as to how they guide their children. So if the parents are good, then children are also interested.
Oh, yeah,
if
sure.
the parents don't take care of their children, the children are also not interested. So that ratio is always there. But we try to reach out to the younger generation as much as possible, and but there's so many things to talk, but because of the translation, I'm also getting lost somewhere in the middle.
Me too, actually.
So those who can understand English. After I came into this office, we continued with some of the programs that my predecessor started. So we hold what we call as the International Youth Forum for Tibetans. So I believe that every year we bring 100 young Tibetans from all around the world to Dharamsala for conference, introduce them to the exiled government. If we do that for 10 years, then we will have 1,000 young leaders. And they are mostly between the age of 20 to 30. And if they live for another 50, our struggle can go on for another 50 years, if it comes to that. So we are doing a lot of youth engagement. And we have started this platform called the Voluntary Tibet Advocacy Group, WeTAG. So all the young people are being enrolled into this because now they have become citizens of other countries. How many Tibetans we have in Latvia? 1 or 2? No, only one. In Estonia, only one. So wherever there is sizable number of Tibetans, now the Tibetans have become citizens of those countries, French or German, and they speak the language, right? And they understand the system. The only thing is they need to understand a little more about Tibet and what is going on inside Tibet right now. So if they understand that they are the best advocates for our cause, and this is the potential that we are harvesting, trying to get together.
Вы приехали в Латвию в рамках большого турне, насколько я знаю, по странам Европы. Скажите, пожалуйста, какая основная цель или тема этого путешествия?
As elected leader of the Tibetans in exile, we have two major responsibilities. One responsibility is to look at possible ways of resolving the Sino-Tibet conflict, which is the political angle. And then we have a diaspora community of about 130,000 Tibetans in more than 25 different countries to look after their welfare. So as a first part for the political thing, we have to represent the Tibetans inside Tibet. So we should be able to tell the story of how Tibetans are suffering inside Tibet to the wider international community. So for that, we have to keep traveling around the world to tell the world as to what is happening inside Tibet, what China's motivations are. And then, of course, we keep up with a lot of developments as we speak. It's a very dynamic world. A lot of things are changing. So based on those also, we have to make evaluations as to which countries are supporting Tibet, which countries are not, and if they are not, then how do we convince them to support? And this time, my visit includes all the 3 Baltic states, which comes under the Office of Tibet London, where Mr. Sonam Frasi is represented today. And 3 Baltic states have suffered just as we are suffering right now inside Tibet under communist Russia. Therefore, His Holiness has also visited Latvia many times. One of the reasons was it's much easier for Kalmykians and Buryat and Tuva Buddhists to come to Latvia instead of them coming to India. And His Holiness has always said, we don't have to explain too much to the Latvians and Estonians and Lithuanians because they have gone through the same problems that we have gone through. And today I can also see that there are many friends, supporters for Tibet who wish Tibet who wish Tibet freedom, and now you have freedom. You have the concept of European Union is also based on human rights and freedom and the values that you so cherish. And the message from His Holiness has always been that we should understand the oneness of humanity. So all 8 billion people in this world are same human beings, and everybody wants happiness. And we should also understand the interdependent nature of our existence. And this is more visible these days because anything that happens in one part of the world impacts the other part of the world. So through these programs, I'm thankful to Martin Skuya and other Tibetan friends for organizing this event tonight, and Artur for being part of this, hosting this program. So I hope that we will be able to, because sometimes we live under the delusion that people know about us, because His Holiness is very prominent, he traveled around the world, but then sometimes we realize that people don't know much about us. So we can talk about basics, we can talk about a lot more other things, we can talk geopolitical, and we are quite up to date with what is happening around the world. This is the main reason why I'm here.
Я хочу уточнить, есть ли какой-то конкретный результат, какой-то практический результат, с которым вы рассчитываете вернуться домой? То есть, или это просто просветительская миссия в большей степени?
United States is the only government that has a law on Tibet. It is called the U.S. Tibet Policy Act of 2002. So United States is also the most powerful country in the world. Now, other countries in Europe, they are just waking up to the reality of China. I think Europe was too much focused on economic gains rather than the very principles and values that you so much cherish in terms of human rights and freedom and democracy. And the dawning of this realization started only from the Russia's annexation or Russia's aggression towards Ukraine. Only then, now Europeans realize that Russia is the immediate threat, but China is the long-term challenge. I was in the Tibetan parliament for almost 20 years, and I was also speaker for 7.5 years. During those times also, I traveled around the world, but there were not too many listeners. Now, governments listen to us because they want to understand China more. Now, the question is how this will translate into policies and programs in the European Union. That is the biggest question. So that is why I tell Europeans that please don't look at us only as victims of communism. Mm-hmm. If you want to bring positive change in China, then you need both internal forces and external forces. And we Tibetans, Uyghurs, Hong Kongers, Taiwanese, even Chinese pro-democracy leaders, we are the internal forces. Some Europeans also tell us that the dragon is biting us, dragon meaning China. Now I tell the Europeans, who fed the dragon to make it so strong to be able to bite at you? It's Americans, Europe, Japan, Taiwan. All these countries are responsible for making China strong or creating this monster. Now, knowing that China is biting at you, if you still want to feed China, the dragon, then whose fault is it? So we're definitely looking at government support. Let's see how it works.
Есть еще вопросы в зале?
Вы во время этой дискуссии много говорили о том, что делают или не делают крупные страны или организации, как США или Организация Объединенных Наций, но как могут помочь народу Тибета, уйгурам, демократическим силам внутри Китая, государственные органы и политические активисты из небольших стран, таких как Латвия? Спасибо большое.
Thank you. A very simple answer would be, please join Martin Skuya in his effort to push the Tibetan agenda forward. He has been working for many years to spread awareness about Tibet. He has been trying to work with the parliamentarians, with the government, with stars to get attention on Tibet. But to support Tibet and Uyghurs, first you have to know the issue. So in democracy, election is very important. For politicians, when they see one person, they see one vote. So if you join hands with Martin Skuya in his efforts to get all Tibet supporters together and then tell the politicians, this is what we want you to do, then only politicians will listen. If people speak up. When governments don't speak up, it should be people who should speak up, that should try to influence the government and the people in the government to take the right decisions. So I would say simply just join Martin Skuya in his effort, make this organization stronger and bigger and be heard.
Мартину Скую, вот обращайтесь, он здесь, он вам все расскажет, покажет.
So if you have a strong support in Latvia, then is there a possibility to work beyond that with the Estonians, with the Lithuanians, and with the Scandinavians, so that you have a bigger force in Europe? Because Europe is a big maze. It's European Union, but you don't have unity of foreign trade policy, so you don't have unity of foreign policies. We have to bring unity of these policies. Then only you can challenge China. I keep saying if Europe is not united in its policies, China is using the same policies that European colonials used to use against the colonies of divide and rule, carrot and stick. So if Germany don't listen, they go to France. So I just give you a small example like Norway. Mm-hmm. Now Norway, China is too big. Norway is very small. So Norwegian Nobel Committee conferred Peace Prize to Liu Xiaobo. Then China put a lot of sanction on Norway. And now Norway is very cowed down.
So China put sanctions on Norway?
Because Norway gave Nobel Peace Prize to Liu Xiaobo.
Yeah, but how is it working? Like how China can put the sanctions on Norway?
Economic sanctions.
Which exactly?
Business.
Like they just closed the business with the Norway.
Yeah.
And is it really sensitive for Norway?
You have to learn more.
Yeah, I have to. This is why I'm here.
Yes.
This is why. This is like
yes.
Yeah. This is public lesson for me.
So that is why I'm saying if there is concerted effort, if China sanctions Norway and if all other countries say, okay, we will also join Norway in pushing back China, then only there will be impact. So Norway alone is not able to do anything back to China. So these are the lessons we have to learn to come together when it comes to China. They stop business. Economic sanctions is one because China complained to the United States that they are putting sanction on China. But China is doing the same thing they did to Australia, they did to Norway, they are doing to many other countries who don't listen to them.
Была ли идея когда-нибудь собраться всем вместе? Потому что 130 тысяч человек, это, в принципе, такое количество можно собрать, например, на стадионе. Была ли такая идея когда-нибудь? Просто, мне мысль сама такая очень вдохновляет, что вот собраться и посмотреть, как нас много. Была ли такая идея? Это немножко шуточный вопрос, но мне интересно. Just to see all your people. No, it's interesting.
Now we can do online, but to do physically, it's going to be very costly for every Tibetan to come to one place. If we have the resources, why not?
Okay.
It's very much possible.
Okay, got it.
But when His Holiness could travel, wherever His Holiness travels, then all Tibetans come together.
You mean they come together with him?
To listen to him.
Yeah, they come in that place.
Yeah, wherever His Holiness travels, every Tibetan around that place comes to listen to His Holiness.
Just everyone.
Yeah, so in Delhi, in India also, when His Holiness organized Kala Chakra, you have 100,000, 200,000 people coming. So most of the Tibetans come to listen to him.
Я бы хотел вернуться в Лхасу, и мне интересно, просто лично мне интересно, какова сейчас судьба дворца Патала, дворца резиденции Далай-ламы, что там происходит сейчас, мог ли раньше туда попасть обычный человек, и может ли он попасть туда сейчас, потому что это фантастическое строение, конечно, в него хочется зайти, к нему хочется прикоснуться и приобщиться, но вот такой вопрос, какова его судьба, жив ли он, стоит ли он, и как он используется, что там происходит сейчас.
I think, Artur, you should apply for visa to visit Tibet.
I want to.
Yeah, then you will get experience about whether you will get the visa or not get the visa first. The Chinese government has declared 5 countries in Europe to visit China without visa for 15 days. But that does not allow you to go to Tibet. You need another special permit. So it's like going to the 3rd country within China. And last year, China organized this Trans-Himalayan Forum where they say they're going to open up Tibet. But if you look at the small prints in that statement, then you will see only to friendly nations. And gradually, so which means it's not open for everybody. And most of the tourists are Chinese in Lhasa. So Potala has become a place to make money for the local government.
Things change.
Things has to change.
Yes, have to. Следующий вопрос такой, более обобщающий. Я думаю, что и мне, и нашим зрителям, во-первых, довольно сложно, во-вторых, очень интересно понять, как, в принципе, целое государство, реальное государство может существовать в изгнании, потому что мы говорим о Тибете и о тибетцах, да, не только как о диаспоре, не только как о иудеях, которые когда-то там, да, скитались без страны и без дома. Да, мы говорим все-таки о полноценных органах власти, мы говорим о законах. Но, наверное, ничего такого больше похожего в мире пока нет. Вот, можете ли вы объяснить, как, в принципе, 130 тысяч человек, разбросанные по всему миру, как они могут чувствовать себя единым целым, как они объединяются, то есть как это выглядит на практике? Вот на бумаге у нас есть государство, у нас есть правительство, у нас есть органы власти и 130 тысяч граждан. Но как это выглядит на практике? Мне особенно это интересно сейчас, для меня это актуально.
So when we first came into exile in 1959 in India, we was only about 80,000 Tibetans who followed His Holiness in India. So Indian government was very kind enough to organize us into compact Tibetan communities in India. So Tibetans in India are spread across 12 different states, from north to east to south to west. So Tibetan communities are in some 45 different locations in India alone. So because of these compact communities, we managed to establish our own schools, our own monasteries, our own cultural institutions. So these are the bedrock of how we preserved our identity in exile. And particularly from 1990s, then more Tibetans started moving out of India. So now you find Tibetans in more than 25 different countries. So unlike other exile communities, we are the only exile community, because of the leadership of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to have a fully functional democratic polity. So we have our cabinet, we have our judicial, we have our parliament, we have our Auditor General's office, we have election commission, we have public service commission. So we have all structures of democracy. The Tibetans in other parts of the world, we try to reach out to the governments also, we try to reach out through the offices of Tibet. So we have 12 offices of Tibet around the world, from Tokyo to Canberra to Taipei, Delhi, Kathmandu, Moscow, Johannesburg, Joburg. We have 3 offices in London. In Europe, with Mr. Sonam Prasi in London, Geneva and Brussels. We have a smaller office in Paris, one office in Washington, D.C., and another office in Sao Paulo in South America. But we have very limited human and financial resources. And wherever there's sizable number of Tibetans, we have Tibetan associations. So all these Tibetan associations come under one office of Tibet. So all Tibetans around the world, when we hold election, now if you want to stand for my position, if you have the time and resources, you have to campaign in 25 different countries. So every Tibetan takes part in all our activities. And my promise to my people during the election was that during 5 years, I will visit every single community 2 times in 5 years.
And how is it going?
I finished, except for Belgium and Netherlands, I finished all other countries. I was in Japan, New Zealand, Australia, India. I cannot go to Nepal. I've been to all the Tibetan communities in Europe except Belgium and Holland. So this the first round, because I'm just finishing my first half.
First round,
so I have to do my second round next time. So when I meet with people, I meet governments. So that's how, in the United States alone, we have more than 30 different Tibetan associations. So I visit every single community around the world, Tibetan community around the world. And that's how we try to keep our people intact.
Кать, вот человек поднял руку.
60 лет назад Франция признала Монголийский Китай, и тогда было безумное количество организаций, вот типа как сейчас, за границей, которые боролись тогда с Монголийским Китаем. Сейчас их найти довольно сложно. То есть сейчас есть вот ассоциации борьбы уйгуров за свои права, борьбы гонконгцев за свои права. Но вот конкретно вот этой организации Фричайна, которая была сделана 60 лет назад, ее нет. Ну, по крайней мере, она очень глубоко законспирирована, мы ее не можем найти. То есть я представляю Русский Либертек, такая организация, самая крупная русских в Париже, просто здесь так оказался, Артур. И вот очень интересно, как они взаимодействуют с другими организациями, которые борются с Китаем, и знают ли они какую-то организацию именно китайскую, вот такая, как Русский Либертек, то есть Фричайна, которая внутри Китая или снаружи, но состоит именно из китайцев, и борются с коммунистической диктатурой.
И как они взаимодействуют, да?
И как они взаимодействуют, да.
We have always taken the leadership amongst Tibetans, Uyghurs, Mongols. Mongols, the meaning Inner Mongolia in China, but they like to be called themselves as Southern Mongolians, not Inner Mongolians. So people like Erkin Aptekan, who's a very senior Uyghur leader, and those days Uyghur was not a big issue. So Erkin is still in Germany. He's very, very old. So we started working with Erkin, with Rabia Kadir, and now Dolkun Isa. But still, Uyghurs also have many different groups. You know, we are only one exile government. Uyghurs have about 6-7 exile governments. So along with the Tibetans, and I think some Estonians at that time also, with the Uyghurs, we established this UNPO. I don't know whether you heard about that. UNPO is a challenge to United Nations, saying unrepresented nations, peoples, organizations. So all communities who are struggling for freedom formed this group.
So I understand about your communication with Uyghurs, but do you know, because we understand that Uyghurs and Tibetans, you're occupied mainly by China. But do you know any association of, sorry for saying, ethnically Chinese who fight with the Chinese government? Like, for instance, like we do.
Like Chinese against Chinese government.
Yeah. No, if there are cases of extradition, I'm not very clear, but I was just coming to that, just to tell you that we have taken the leadership. Just last year in June, we have Uyghurs, we have Hong Kongers, we have Taiwanese, we had the pro-democracy leaders from China, and even Manchuria for the first time, and Mongolians. We had conference in Dharamsala last June. And just this month, when Taiwan election was going on, our Office of Tibet in Taipei organized meeting of all these different groups in Taiwan just last month.
And how was it? What's the result?
So we always come together and discuss about the common problems that we face, but every one of us have different background, different historical background, different ask. So what I was suggesting is, can we have one huge program, let us say in Europe, Tibetans, Uyghurs, pro-democracy, Chinese, everybody come together. Let's tell the Chinese that if need be, we all can come together. And maybe a little variation from what you are asking, but when I was in Switzerland last time, I asked the Swiss government, because they signed an extradition treaty with China, Swiss and China. Similarly, Czech Republic had signed extradition treaty with China. Portugal had signed extradition treaty with China. So I asked the Swiss people, what is this agreement for? What is this treaty for? Do you have Swiss people who committed crime in Switzerland and fled to China to be repatriated back to Switzerland? Or is it only meant for Chinese government to tell you to send this Hong Konger or to this pro-democracy Chinese back to China? And this is exactly your question as to pro-democracy leaders not being seen, and where are they? So I don't know of particular cases of Chinese pro-democracy leaders who have been extradited back, but these days it's not easy. Even now there are Chinese Hong Kongers with rewards on their head. And last time Joshua Wong was with me in one of the conference, and he was just joking and saying that, wait for some more time, my price might go up, then you can hand me over to China. So for France, you have 50 years of friendship with China coming up this year. You also have Olympics coming up this year. I was in Paris very recently, and the French government like to have their own independent foreign policy.
В заголовок нашей сегодняшней беседы мы вынесли 3 слова, 3 понятия. Это закон, этика и мораль. Они были определены как основополагающие ценности, да, в момент образования Организации Объединенных Наций. Вот скажите, пожалуйста, по-вашему, насколько важную роль сегодня играет ООН? Выполняет ли она вообще свои взятые на себя обязательства перед человечеством? И как ваши отношения строятся с Организацией Объединенных Наций? Довольны ли вы вообще ее, скажем так, эффективностью сегодняшней?
Unfortunately, we consider United Nations as the most undemocratic institution in the world. Sometimes we think United Nations is like a human body without arms and legs. Most of the time they are not able to take decisions. Even if they take decision, then the veto from one of the Security Council, it's over. United Nations has passed a resolution on Tibet way back in 1951 that the Tibetans have right to self-determination. But there's no action on it. Just a few days ago, there was the Universal Periodic Review of Human Rights Situation in China, in the United Nations. But there is no space for us to speak. We have to piggyback on other non-governmental organizations to find space to speak in the United Nations. So we have to struggle to be heard in the United Nations.
Это очевидно, в общем-то, но я должен был спросить. Но есть другой способ донесения информации до мира, способы рассказать о себе и привлечь внимание. И они, вот, казалось бы, они, по идее, должны быть более эффективны. Вот я сам музыкант, я очень хорошо помню, какой большой резонанс имела кампания Tibetan Freedom. Это была серия концертов, которую организовала группа Beastie Boys и другие музыканты. И это было довольно давно. Вот сейчас прошло время, и почему-то, тем не менее, так получается, То есть там была возможность и привлечь внимание, и высказаться, и это все было посвящено Тибету. Но вот прошло время, и мы лучше помним сами концерты, чем их цели и уж тем более там результаты. Но вот для музыкантов такие акции, безусловно, это отличная промо. Но вопрос такой, вопрос, наверное, тоже, он неудобный в какой-то степени и острый, но тем не менее. Есть ли реальная польза от таких концертов, и что вы можете сказать об этом опыте вот таких кампаний публичных в поддержку Тибета, и приближают ли такие шоу, такие промо-акции, приближают ли они реальную независимость и освобождение Тибета как таковую? То есть насколько это нужно, насколько это необходимо, насколько это важно?
This was in the mid-90s when the issue of Tibet became quite popular in the United States. And it's the leadership of few people, like the Beastie Boys, they were very much involved. And from the income they got from this, what they call as the Tibet Freedom Concert, were used to establish Students for Free Tibet. So at one time in the United States, we used to have 500 chapters of Students for Free Tibet in different campuses around the United States. So it was very, very useful to spread awareness about Tibet during those days. There are also many followers of Buddhism in Hollywood. So they also are interested, but not as much as Richard Gere is. I know Martin has been trying to get Richard Gere to come to Latvia many times. He has been always telling me we have to get Richard Gere and you should come together. If we can have
We're waiting for him like a heartache.
No, if we can have meeting with your president, prime minister, and all that, I'll definitely get Richard Gere to come here. Because since I became Sikyong in May 2021, every 6 months I try to go back to the United States because we have to keep working with them. We also receive funding from them. I was there already 4 times, and 3 times Richard Gere was with me all the time in the US Congress and the State Department. One time he could not come because he had many times COVID this time. So one time he was sick, he could not come. Otherwise, he's always there with us to talk with governments for support. And if there are good programs in Latvia that he thinks his time will be well spent, definitely he will make effort to come here. So now we have another famous actor with us. So if you have stars, then others also follow. But stars have to be committed to the cause. Tibet is not a fashion. It's a commitment. And people like Richard Gere are committed to help Tibetans. So we need more authors in the region also.
Good evening, Mr. President. Thanks for coming. My question is about heritage. When your long, long life will finish, what do you want to leave after you?
I'm not a great person to leave heritage behind. I only follow His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And it's Holiness the Dalai Lama's heritage and legacy that is more important to this world in the form of his messages of love and peace and compassion and oneness of humanity. That is more important. So I'm just a small shadow in the large personal image of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I try to follow him as much as possible. So all my decisions are guided by His Holiness wisdom. I am a very ordinary person.
It's very common Buddhism position. Yeah, like I know. It's very common. Like we know that power. This is a drug. Yeah, and it makes you addicted very quickly. How do you feel about your power? Is it true that this is an addiction? So you are the president, and you are elected, and there will be the time when it finishes. And what do you think about the future? Is it easy to you to say hello to your to say goodbye to your power?
No, in our case, I don't see my position as something as a power that I can We take it more as a responsibility. Yeah. And one of my predecessor, Professor Samdong Rinpoche, he was a very scholarly monk. We invited him to speak to the younger generation of Tibetans as to what their responsibility is. And Rinpoche spoke for 1 hour, but he didn't say what your responsibility is. He defined only 2 words: responsibility in English and the same word in Tibetan. Lenge. Okay, that's the lenge is the word for responsibility in Tibetan.
Lenge.
Le is your work and gen is your responsibility. Lengen. Okay, so when you define this word, the word reflects your thinking. Yeah. So in Tibetan, when you say lenge, it is something that has to come out of yourself to do for others. When you use the word, English word, responsibility, it originates from response, which means somebody asks you to do something. That is the difference in how you think in the language that you use. You know, so when you say power, for some, it is something that you feel you can do anything with it. But for me, it is more, I don't see it as a power at all, because there's nothing for me personally to gain. I'm committed in this life to work for my people and for my country. So I see that more as a responsibility than a power. Yeah. So if you relate power with position, when you have the position, of course you have more space to do what you want to do. But when you think from the perspective of responsibility, whether you have a position or no position, you still have to keep doing that job. The space and the expanse is different, but otherwise it's the same thing, whether you have a position or not. So even after I finish my post, I'll still be doing something, but maybe at a lesser level, because the impact and the space is less.
But feeling is the same.
Feeling is the same. Why? Just because you appreciate me, I don't go to the heaven. You know, if you scold me, if you say bad things about me, I am what I am. I don't become big or small just because what you tell me. I am what I am, depending on how I think and how I perceive and how I deliver my job. It does not matter, because Buddhism is all about your mind. External things need not necessarily impact you as long as you are clear about what you are doing. But absolute power corrupts. You know? So here, in this case, when we don't think about power, then there is no corruption in the mind. And then you just deliver your job. So this position is not to promote myself. This position is to serve others. And that's how you think. If somebody is coming to meet me, I know there is a problem. So my mind is always geared towards finding solution.
У меня вопрос личного характера. Не испытываете ли вы в своей деятельности страх или риск? Не преследуете ли ваша деятельность со стороны государственных органов Китая или спецслужб? Насколько опасна ваша работа?
For one thing, I can say I'm not afraid of death. Our philosophy is when you live, you do your best. When you are going to go, nobody knows. In what way, nobody knows. So if Chinese want to kill me, I have no problem. When I live, I do my best.
Но это еще важный был ответ, что никто не знает, когда мы умрем, куда мы отправимся и что с нами будет. Пока я живу, я буду делать то, что должен. В общем, делай, что должен, и будь, что будет.
So when this video goes out also, they're watching me. They're watching all our moves. You too. Yeah. So just yesterday in Estonia, we had another love letter from the Chinese embassy. We call it love letter.
Oh, really?
They always complain.
Yeah.
I call them friends, not enemy. You know.
Yeah. Yesterday I had almost the same situation.
You should not go for that program. You cannot host that. this is against Chinese government policy. You will destroy relation between Latvia and China. All this happens all the time. Yeah. So it's not a big problem. But of course, they follow us, and I always thank the Chinese government for being our best publicity agent. So when His Holiness used to travel around the world, every time Chinese government complain, then it becomes news.
From now, the Russian government will also know about you. Yeah. So every time when we will meet, it will be the promotion of in Russia, right? And the last question: do you have some your own addictives? It could be positive addictives, of course. And is there something? Не знаю, как сказать по-английски, помогите, пожалуйста. Если что-то, от чего вам сложнее всего отказаться в этой жизни, и если что-то, от чего вам хочется отказаться, но вы не можете, почему-то.
One addiction is smoking, which we just did outside.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Material addictions, of course, you can overcome that if you want to, but humans are full of follies, so we have to keep some part of it, otherwise you become Buddha very fast. It's okay. But the addiction for us Tibetans is to work for your people, work for your cause, work for the larger interests of humanity, like what His Holiness says. Yeah, so this is also an addiction. Mm-hmm. And if you fulfill that, it's good for yourself. This addiction is good for yourself and for all others also. So addiction of altruism is something that everybody has to learn. That's why when I offered Artur the scarf, I told him this white scarf represents the purity of our heart, who's offering the scarf to the other person. And you have the 8 auspicious symbols wishing Artur well for everything that he does. And there are also letters wishing him well. So the idea is, if others are happy, then you are also happy.
This sounds good, and this is feeling good. I feel that your words is not just the words, and I'm very impressed about our conversation. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I hope that this is not the last time, because I really have many questions, and I want to give it to you, not on personal, but in public. But for now, we must finish.
Yeah.
And thanks for all of you. Thanks for coming. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I want to wish all the best to you, especially, and for all Tibetans, for His Holiness. And things change.
It has to change.
It has to change. Let's believe in it. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. This is a book by Michael van Walt van Praag. It's called Tibet Brief 2020. And if you want to understand a little more about the history of Tibet, why Tibet is not part of China, then this is a good book to read. And then there is also Arthur was asking me, do you have good Chinese friends? I said, one Chinese is this person who wrote this book. He studied only imperial Chinese historical records, and he proves that imperial China, whether it's the Mongols or the Chinese or the Manchus, they never considered Tibet as part of China. So these are historical facts. Not what Chinese government is telling you, that Tibet has been part of China since time immemorial. I don't know when that is. So just in case, if you have the time and the interest and the inclination, you have access to materials.
This is the same. I mean, in sense, this is the same books.
This is the perspective is different. This is Michael worked with about 100 scholars from Inner Asia, and he came out with this book. Laos, he looked only at Chinese historical record, but it proves the same thing.
Когда мы разговаривали об этом, он сказал, что единственное доказательство того, что Тибет мог являться, частью Китая, это то, что когда-то один из тибетских, царей, если можно, наверное, так сказать, был женат на китайской принцессе. На этом все. Собственно, это единственная связь. Но потом он говорит, что он был женат еще и на непальской принцессе, так что, в принципе, и непальцы могут сказать, что, ну, как бы Тибет – это и часть Непала. Вот, поэтому, если вам интересно узнать об истории Тибета и о том, как так вообще сложилось и как мы оказались в этой точке, то вот эти две книги господин президент очень советует вам всем прочитать. I just translate what you say.
So I want to offer one scarf to you, to Mrs. Artur. And one for you. And for the rest of you, to get this scarf, you have to come to Dharamsala, because I could not bring enough. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Artur.
Great conversation.
Thank you.